Well, I want to just go through this program, and when I'm through, I'll let you ask some questions, okay? So just hang on a minute while I go through it. What the book doesn't do initially is it does not use a main function, but I would like you to use a main function as shown in this example here. Generally, we want you to write your programs in the main function. Unfortunately, the book doesn't start doing that until about chapter 5. So how you do that is you just type in def space main, open close parentheses, colon, press enter. And when you press enter, your cursor will be tabbed in by one tab. And that's important. You have to indent your statements inside the main function. Now, to generate output, one of the things that we want to do with a computer program is we want to generate output, of course. And the workhorse statement for that is the print statement. You can print anything you want inside quotes. I'm using single quotes. Apostrophes are called single quotes. And I'm printing hello world. Now here, this line here is a little different. This line here doesn't generate any output. What I'm doing there is I'm using a variable called name and assigning it the value Guido. Guido is the man who invented the Python language. Anything inside quotes like this will show up in green, and it's what we call a string of characters, or string for short, and it will show up in green. You can print out a string and a variable. If you use a comma separator in between the two, you can print hello. This will print hello Guido when I give it a run. I'm going to run it in just 1 second. Now, to make the main function run, you have to put main at the bottom of your program, right up against the margin, not indented at all. So let me just try running this and show you what it looks like when you run it. That's all you get when you run this program. There's the prints hello world. And you'll notice it didn't print out hello name. It printed out hello Guido because the name Guido is assigned to the variable name. If I put name inside quotes, it actually would say hello name. Okay, any question about that particular program?
So when you start, it has number main.py at the top.
Could you say that a little bit louder? Maybe turn up your audio a bit.
Okay. So when we start, it has to say number.py at the top.
This is what we call a comment up here. If you're talking about this, yeah, I've named this program main.py because I wanted to demonstrate the main function down here. These are comments that don't execute. They're little notations that you can put inside your program. You can add them at the end of a line as well, like this. Okay. Not sure if that answered your question. If not, try again.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else have a question about that? Okay. Well, I'd like to go to a second program then, if I could. Here's a little more complex program. Not really, but I've called this one data.py. Whenever you're writing a computer program, your program is going to work with what we call data. Data just means names, numbers, addresses, things like that the program has to work with. Well, each piece of data in a program has to have a name, and that's what we call a variable. A variable is a name for the data in your program. Okay, so you have to have a name for each piece of data. Now, when you're working with data, there are two main families of data. You got numeric data, numbers, of course, and then you've got strings, which is non-numeric data, things like names, addresses, city names. Those would be string type data. There are two types of numeric data, int and float. Int data has no decimal values, just whole numbers. Floats are for numbers with decimal places. So you've got three types of data, I guess you could say. You've got strings for non-numeric data. Then you've got the int type and the float type for numbers. Strings are always enclosed by quotes. They can be single or double. Generally, people use single quotes because you don't have to hit the shift key to get the apostrophe on your keyboard. Okay, take a look at main in this particular case here. Once again, we're starting the program with def main, and we're assigning the value Maria to a variable called name. Because that's a string, I have to enclose it in quotes. This will not work. If I take the quotes away, this program would crash. We're assigning 24 to a variable called age, 1575 to a variable called pay. This is a float type number. This is an int type number. So we're demonstrating all three types of data in this particular program. We've got a string, an int, and a float. Now, we can generate output with those pieces of data. We can just output a string with hello world. If we use a comma separator, we can output more than one data item with print. In this case, we can print hello and the name. We can also use commas to separate variables and strings, as we're doing here. Take a look at this print. It's a little bit complicated here, but we've got actually 4 items that we're printing out: a variable, a string, a variable, and a string. And once again, finally, we've got another line down here, which also has 4 pieces of data inside the print. Well, I'm going to run this to show you how it runs. There's the output. Now I can close this output window at any time. I will right now. And when I rerun the program, it'll generate another output window, a fresh output window. So there's the output of that program. Now what I'd like you to try to follow here is, can you see why we get this output from this program? Notice that we get Maria here for that piece of data. This gives us Maria because name was assigned the value Maria. Any question about how that program works? No? No questions about that? I'm going to unmute everybody here if I can. Okay, Ryan, you're unmuted. Aaron, you're unmuted. I'm going to try to unmute everybody so you can ask questions. Please go ahead and ask a question about this program if there's anything about this program that you don't follow. No problem?
Seems pretty straightforward to me.
Everybody okay with this particular program? Okay. Well, I'm going to try a third one then. Go to a third program. I've called this one input. This program is a little bit different from the previous one. We're going to be working with data again, but in this one, we're going to be entering input from the keyboard. And that's what you can do with the input statement. Very often in a program, you want it to be interactive. You want the user to be able to enter values. Well, the input statement enables that. The input statement, here's the first one, input right here. The way it works is you specify a string, which is a prompt. That'll show up on the screen when we run this program. We call it the prompt string because basically it's prompting the user for what to do. And when the user types something in response to that prompt, it will be assigned to this variable over here. By default, the input function gives you a string. It always gives you a string. If you want to get a numeric input, you have to embed the entire input inside either float or int. So as you can see right here, I've embedded a complete input function, a complete input statement inside of a float function. So when we enter the item price, it will accept a floating point number and store it into the variable price over here. Here we have embedded the entire input function inside of the int function. So that'll enable us to enter an int from the keyboard. Now, once we have those values, we can do math. We can do calculations with numeric variables. If I wanted to get the total of some items I'm buying at a particular price, I could multiply those together, price times quantity, and assign it to another variable, total. Then I could print out a summary of the data in this particular program. So I'm going to give this one a run. Notice that all of your output will continue to follow in this. We call this the interactive window, whereas this is the script window over here. All right, so let's say I'm going to buy hammers, and they're $12.95 each, and I'm going to buy 2. So there's the output that generates. Can you see why that program generates that output?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Good. That's the idea here. Notice we are entering the description. That's a string. Can't do arithmetic with a string. If we want to do arithmetic, which we do want to do, we want to multiply price times quantity, then we have to use float or int. This is a float. $12.95 is a float. The 2 was an int. We did the multiplication and came up with the $12.95, which I guess is, if you multiply that by 2, that is $25.90. Later in this in chapter 2, you will see how to format your output with currency, make it look like currency. Any question about this particular program at all? Okay. Now, what I didn't do in this program is write any pseudocode. Normally, when you write a program, you put some pseudocode up here at the top with the comments. I didn't have enough screen real estate to do that here today. Any questions about any part of this program? Now, there is one thing I did point out that I would like to point out, and that is when you're making your input statement, you'll notice that at the end of each of my strings, I've left a single space. And if you don't do that, the input will jam up against the prompt string. So if I didn't do that, I wouldn't get the space here. Okay, so always finish your prompt strings with a space at the end. Okay, that's all I wanted to go through for today. I wanted to open it up now, just to any questions that you might have at all about working with Python, or possibly you have a question about your assignment. I did want to make, I did forget to say, page 54, your math operators are there on page 54.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So with one of the assignments, and I got it right, but I just don't understand why it looks like this. When you do the like point to F or the 2 decimal points,
yeah,
like it doesn't look like a string.
Right.
I'm just confused by that.
So what's the question?
Why does it look like a string?
Just that. Okay, yeah, that's okay. Good point. Tell you what I'm going to do here. I'm going to run this program here again, just so I can get an output window. So I'm going to close this window, and I'm going to run this last program again. And I'll try hammers again. $12.99 this time. I'll buy 3 of them. So there's my output. Now, I'm in the interactive window, or the output window. You can tell by the text at the top of the screen and the triple greater than sign here. Well, what's interesting about this window is you can test Python statements right here. And I think I can explain your question by entering some input right here. I don't know if you know it, but you can do arithmetic. Like, you can sort of use this like a calculator when you're in this window. Notice I can do multiplication there. Well, I can also do printing right here. And I could print, for example, how about this one? 30% 7. Anybody know what that's going to do? I'm using a math operator on page 54. Look at page 54. You'll see an operator that's a percent symbol.
It's going to divide those two and get the remainder here.
That's right. It's the remainder operator. So what should this print when I press enter here? Anybody?
Whatever those two divide, the remainder of what that would be. Exactly.
So what would it be then?
We go to P-shell.
How many times does 7 go into 30? Anybody?
4.
4 times. And what's the remainder?
Be 2.
Exactly. That's what you get with 30% 7. You get the remainder after a division. The percent sign gives you the remainder.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So I know J shell because I learned that. But the free soul language have a shell.
Has a what?
Basically, that's what Python is.
I'm sorry, I'm not following what you're saying there. Every language has what?
How does my like?
Echoey.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't follow you. Please repeat.
Okay, because I noticed it sounded very Basically, what I was asking is that does every language have a shell? Because I work with Java.
A shell?
Yeah, like J shell.
A shell is something that an operating system has. Like when you open up a command window, that's like a shell window. Windows also has PowerShell, but that's not a concern of this course at all. If you double click on your file name on your computer, it will run it in a command window, but it'll just run and then quickly disappear. We want you to use idle, the idle program, which is what we're using here.
But if you look at the top, it says PyShell, it looks the same as like J shell. So like you see how it says Python 6.2 shell.
Okay, son, I'm sorry, I don't have time for something that's not related to the course. We only have 30 minutes today, I'm sorry. I'm not sure exactly what you're getting at. How about sending me an email and I'll try to get back to you.
Okay.
Thanks, I'm sorry about that. I wanted to address the question about format. Let's say I entered a value of total equals, and I'll enter 123.4567. Lots of decimal places. That's now being assigned in memory, even although this isn't a program. And I could now format that. Print format. When you use format, you specify 2 things: what you want to format, a comma, and then how you want to format it. So if I were to put 0.2f here and close my parentheses, I have to have 2 closing parentheses here because I opened 2. So here's how format works: what you want to format, and then how you want to format inside a string. So this means format it with 2 decimal places as a floating point number.
Oh.
But yeah, so if I press enter there, you'll notice it rounds it off to 2 decimals. That's how that works. So format requires two items inside the parentheses: what you want to format, and then how you want to format it. I could change this. By the way, I can arrow up here and repeat this line if I press enter, and I could modify it to say show 3 decimal places with a 3.
And you can add a comma, right, to make it if it's over 1,000.
Outstanding. Yes, you can. I'm gonna repeat this line. I'll make this a bigger number. Okay, it's over 1,000 now. And if I run this one again up here and add a comma, as you suggest, right there, put the comma before the decimal, before the period. That will make it look like thousands.
Cool.
Yeah, it is kind of cool. Now, all of this, by the way, is right near the end of chapter 2. I'd like you to make sure that you're aware of it. It's right at the very end of the chapter. Yes. I guess it starts on page, where is it now? 68, page 68, 69, 70, 71 is all about formatting your output, and that's an extremely important concept that we'll need for all future chapters as well. We obviously couldn't cover everything today, but is there any other questions? Unfortunately, this software is limiting me to a half hour, so I think we've only got about 5 minutes left. Any more questions? Any more questions? Go ahead, please. Any questions? Okay, well, not having a question, I'm going to make a new completely new file. What I'm going to do is I'm going to call this one math.py, and I'm going to start it with the main function, def main. And with this one, I want to do a little bit of arithmetic. So I'm going to go with num1 equals 10, num2 equals 20. Now, what I'd like to do is try printing out some values here. We'll go with print, and I want to do num2 slash num1. That should do the division and print it out. Okay, now to make this all work, I have to put main down here to run the main function. But I want to do a few other things here first. I want to review these math operators. And by the way, I don't like this this first number here. I'm going to go with a different number here. Make this 12. I'm going to copy this line and paste it in a few times with modifications. I'm going to try a double slash. Take a look on page 54. And then I'm going to try a percent sign here. And I'll comment this line out. I don't want this line to execute. So I'm going to run this. If I run it, it hasn't been saved yet. You notice it says untitled at the top, so I'm going to run it. And I'm going to call it math. The py will be added for me. And there's my output. Unfortunately, it's the bottom of the window, so I'm going to run it again in a new window. There's the output that I got from 20 divided by 12. Notice I get a long floating point number. It's 1 2/3, which comes out to 1.66 repeater. But if I use a double slash here, that's integer division. That means integer division. And for integer division, you lose the decimal part. The percent sign gives you the remainder after the division. So you'll notice that I got 8 because the 12 divides into 20 once with 8 remainder. So a double slash gives you integer division. You lose you lose the decimal part of the division.
Does it round?
No, it just truncates it off. Good question. It does not round it off. You just lose any decimal. I could mess with it right here. I could try print 23 / 5 4. You lose the decimal. Okay, I'm told that that's the end of the lesson. I'm sorry. Time's up. If you find this helpful, send me an email and we can have another lesson, maybe 1 o'clock or something like that. Was this helpful?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
I'll tell you what I'm going to do. These programs that I used today, I'm going to zip them up into a file and I will email them to you folks. Okay, I'm going to email it to you so you can look at them yourself and play around with them. There's only one way to get good at programming. You got to write programs, lots of them, as many as you can. Just keep trying. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye now.